Okay, on this episode of Design Time, I'm going to go over a bunch of things, including the pick cart and how that went, a couple parts on the C6, but I'm also going to appreciate the design of other companies as you can see them on our new 2JZ for the C6 build. On a 2JZ, we have coils directly on the spark plugs. We don't need to run any spark plug wires. If you're not a V8 guy, you wouldn't even know how awesome this is, but the perspective of running a V8 makes this seem so much better. The next thing would be the phase manifold here. This is built by a friend of mine over in Quebec. I went to their facility. They do a lot of things correct, including the mild steel flange. They mill the flange post welding. The reason it's beneficial to go from mild to stainless with a 309 filler, I believe, it allows for the heat expansion off of the head to handle and not break or crack any of the welds. They also back purge and weld all of this correctly. This manifold is built to handle a ton of horsepower, and you can see we even have the individual EGT sensor ports. Another thing that's really sick is all of our turbo smart components, the wastegate and the turbo, connected by a V-band. Back in the day, we used to run twin scroll, T4 flange, you had 4 little bolts. Bolts were always a pain to get at. They were usually either studs or bolts that passed through a flange here. It was always a pain to build the manifold because I used to build them as well. But doing stuff with V-bands is just, I mean, it's not new technology, but it is significantly improving. This turbo is going to be able to handle anywhere from 900 to 1,000 horsepower. We're likely going to spray. It's a 6870 with a 107 AR, and we are planning to put out a ton of horsepower with this setup. All spec'd by Turbo Smart. I gave them the specs of what we wanted. We basically want to be able to dunk on the V8 setup, and with this we should. Another design time thing, there's tons of companies that make aftermarket plenums for the 2JZ intakes, and based on Adam LZ's video that we watched a couple years ago, they did testing on all different types of intakes, and they found that the highest torque and most power came from, you wouldn't guess it, the OEM Toyota intake manifold. So from Drift HQ, we got this adapter which allows us to run the GTE head, also connect on the OEM intake manifold. We're going to be running an electric throttle body. We're going to be able to control the throttle body to allow for a high idle or high RPM between shifts and on handbrake. This is going to give us and keep us into the power band and torque range of the engine, almost behaving like a V8, all done with the programming of the electric throttle body. You can see we have these mounts here. These are designed by me, made by us. I say us because it's Cam or Rain or whoever's got to cut it, weld it, put it together. Real close clearances, but we are clearing everything. This drops into the C6 subframe and clears the steering shaft that comes through. One thing I'm going to show you guys is how horrendous proper exhaust systems are on highly abused drift cars, and how awesome this is going to be with a single downpipe, single 4-inch exit. It's going to leave us with a ton of room and so much easier to get the heat away from stuff and do things like a clutch job. We've had the transmission and bell housing taken out of this car probably 6 times this year, whether it's a starter, a clutch, something to do with the training. We've had to pull it a lot, and this is going to make that even easier. Last thing I'm going to point out are the Rad Industry components. This is essentially a 2-piece section. Internally, we have pocketing that guides the water where it needs to go. This is not tight in here, but you can see in there. So in addition to this water pump delete kit, it also has a secondary slot for our accessories to adjust for pulleys. On this end, we have quite a complex. This would require a 5-axis CNC machine, possibly a 4, but better on a 5. This is the Rad Industries water outlet, and it requires several different pieces to be stacked and bolted together with O-rings and stuff in between, but it's a really nice piece that he's come up with. And this whole engine was put together by Drift HQ. Chris is the one that assembles these things, so I know that it's going to be solid. He's done so many of these. You can actually buy this complete 3-liter package that's going to be putting out 900 horsepower from them, maybe even from their website. Generally, when it comes to engine stuff, you're going to email a company before you actually make that big purchase. I don't know that many people are going online and just hitting buy now on anything, 2J, LS, whatever it may be. But Drift HQ has been putting these setups together for a long time. So Adam LZ is killing it. They're all doing the same thing there. They're all the same people, they go to the same places. So you've seen his car pushing well over 1,000 horsepower in FD. He's currently ranked third, running the FDF front angle kit. That is the Adam LZ spec, which really there's not much of a difference, very small, but what the more critical thing there is going to be his alignment specs are so crazy that if you were to mimic them, you would have to learn how to drive with them. And I think he's really maximized how you're able to get the most out of your car. Even if it's not the easiest thing to drive, he's been able to do it. And it's been really awesome to see him refine that this year and basically put it on the box in pro, the highest level, consistently. That's what we're gonna be running in the Corvette. Over to the results. We have the first place check here, and I have the trophy at my house. But this is $5,000 for coming first place at DMCC. This is the payout for each round. Now this isn't Canadian. $5,000 sounds pretty cool, but in US it's probably like 3,400 or something if you did the conversion. Needless to say, this cart did exactly what we needed it to do when we needed it to do it. We needed to use the vise, we needed to hammer and bend some things. We needed to use all these nitrous bottles, we needed to use the welding bottle. We used four out of our 6 nitrous bottles at that round. So essentially, if we have 6, that gives us enough for practice and enough for battles. If we had a couple one more times, we would have went through 1 or 2 more bottles. So luckily we didn't have any. I did already make the change to these slots to accept E-Track. So if we do build another one, those slots will accept any E-Track attachment. But for now, all they're doing for us is basically accepting hooks, which is totally fine for me. We're gonna be adding this bin system. You can essentially see how that works. I'm gonna be putting this probably up here like that. And the way that it works is holds the bin. So these, we have hundreds of these from Uline. And essentially we're gonna be able to slide a bin and put lubricants, cleaning supplies, extension cords, ratchet straps. That's 4 bins right there. We might need to add some extra stuff on top of it. We're also gonna add our Fastenal bins to this cart, hopefully in some creative way that makes it work really well, because I do like to have a well-organized fastener setup. Basically, these bins that I'm gonna hang up are gonna replace these. So we're actually gonna have quite a bit of room here. That's likely where the fastener stuff's gonna go. Fasteners is likely one of the most popular and most used setups. A bunch of teams always are coming to me for stuff, and then for ourselves, I'm always using M6, M8, M10 bolts for random things. We did have to go into this. We got the starter out of our front spares pack out, so that worked perfectly. It was right on hand. We didn't use the transmission spare, but we were ready to if we needed to. So the tire rack, some people have pointed out that it only holds 7 tires. You are unfortunately correct. That is the length of this, but 7 or 8 tires is a lot to be taken to a hot pit, so I'm probably gonna reduce this down to 6, and then I'm gonna put a platform here that's gonna be holding something else. Maybe it could hold an extra row of these VP jugs. I'll put one of these up here so that I can actually hold even more. Honestly, it's just nice to have a place to hold all this stuff, and I would like to advertise for VP and just have a way that I can store this all the time. So 8 jugs is a lot, yes, but I mean, it's better to have more and not need it than need it and not have it. This setup worked great. We didn't need the welder, but we've got our spot for it. And underneath, we didn't use this generator because we were close enough to the trailer, but if we ever did go to an actual hot pit like a Clutch Kickers or Formula Drift, we're ready to rock with that. We still need to add our 12-volt supply and our 120-volt circuit. The 120-volt circuit will plug into this generator, and we'll basically just have a couple outlets along the front side of this. Nothing crazy, probably just something that comes off of here. Any space that we have available for plugs and extension cords we're gonna be utilizing and slowly perfect this. Joel's gonna set up a underglow system, probably design some light canopies that kind of lean out on an angle, hold some LED lights for us to brighten up our pit. For those asking, this cart could definitely be recreated and built. It's not something that we've seriously thought about yet, but it is something that has been, passing through our mind. What will the price of something like this be? Could we offer different options? Could it actually become a business model on its own? I already thought of making a mini, mild, and mega version of these pit carts. one that would have a single axle and tow like a trailer, or it has like 3 feet platform on the front, maybe 2 foot on the back, center axle using the same bearings and wheels. Then we've considered making a driven version. The hub width of this cart is identical to a golf cart, so you could actually put a golf cart rear end in one of these things and put a thumb switch on the drive and actually motor this thing around. Possibilities are really kind of endless. And then the other thing that I wanted to do to this carousel was add hooking points onto the vertical beams. Rain and I are gonna make a jig that we're gonna be able to cut E-track slots into these tubes before welding them. But on this one, we're probably just gonna drill a 1/2 inch hole every 4 inches, and that'll give us a spot to put ratchet straps. And then we're gonna buy a bunch of those 500-pound rated ratchet straps. Not these huge ones. These ones are for tying down like a car in your trailer or something. We don't need that for this. We just didn't have any smaller ones left over. We have our rotors. These are cut from alloy steel, 3/16, and these are gonna be used with our Willwood setup. Willwood is sending us GP200 calipers. More often than not, they're used on motorcycle stuff. And then we're gonna pair it with, it's kind of an ATV motorcycle master. So it's a 5/8 master that will have a 3-position lockout on it, aluminum handle, all produced by Willwood. And then we're gonna connect it all using Hell Performance brake lines. Overkill for sure. We could have done 2 of these on just the front axles or something, but when you're working with companies and you're using this kind of as a promotional tool, why not just throw it on front and rear and make it the ultimate setup? Because it's gonna prove and show what's possible. These rotors, we could design different types, different sizes, different kinds. I did actually have some waves on the outside. I didn't really like it, and I don't really like the way that those look. I like the standard circular disc with, you know, some interesting cutouts and some speed holes. The Master's actually identical to this 4-wheeler one. It's got the exact same lockout mechanism. So you can just crank it, lock it, and that's gonna hold the cart, not forever, but definitely for an extended period of time whenever you're parking the setup. Basically, these are gonna space the wheels out 3/16 of an inch each side, which is about 4.5 mil. I don't think it's gonna affect anything. I mean, obviously I did this in CAD, so the edge of the tire is exactly with the edge of the cart. So we are gonna add 3/16 here. I don't think it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be negligible. Steering wise, we're still gonna be good. Yeah, it's gonna be fine. So as far as any more design time stuff goes, I got nothing for you. Oh, I was gonna show you how the splitter did on the Corvette. This is the setup from underneath. You can see that we took some hits on the sides, and I'm totally fine with all of that. It bolts here to the subframe using 3. These were actually casting spots on the subframe. There was no holes there, but it's right in the CAD file of the OEM subframe. So I just drilled and tapped M8 threads here, added some studs so that we're not constantly using the aluminum, and then we leveled the studs with the nuts and tightened her on. So this has a nice little bend here that works real great to stiffen the midsection. We had to punch a hole here for our jacking point, and then these flaps are also for rigidity on the sides, and then I added a 14-degree bend here along the aluminum, already knowing that when I bolt everything up and the sagging and everything, it'll kind of counteract itself, and it ended up giving us like a 2-degree rake down, which works great. Normally you wouldn't run a 2-degree rake on like a race car, but because we're drifting, as you turn to lock, the front end jacks up quite a bit, and this rake ends up being almost perfectly flat. So this worked out fantastic. It really strengthened the front of the bumper. Really happy with how this went. And again, a bunch of people were asking if they could buy this. Technically, you can buy anything. We can definitely share the CAD files and send out some cuts or whatever. So that's pretty much all I got for you on this design time video. Not so much at the computer, more real world testing, which is honestly the more fun part of it. And we'll see you guys on the next video. I'm gonna be going over my Sim HQ setup, which, talk about design time. The quality of the components that are coming out on Sims now is absolutely insane. And I'm gonna have to show you guys how that is. And then also how that helped me win in Montmagny, driving with Donnie online for just a couple of hours. It really was impressive how on the first bank, it was really difficult to extend to the edge of the wall. And equivalent to the sim, it was also very difficult to extend to the edge of that wall on the sim as well. So crazy how going to the track within the first couple laps of practice, I can connect the dots mentally, find out what's different, and then make it happen. So we'll talk about that on the next one. I gotta get back to work.